In the world of modern hip-hop, few names shine brighter than Young Thug. A Grammy-winning icon, a fashion trendsetter, the CEO of his own label, Young Stoner Life Records. He was the voice of a generation, a superstar who seemed to have it all. But prosecutors in Atlanta, Georgia saw a different picture. They didn't just see a record label, they saw a street gang, a criminal enterprise responsible for a wave of violence, robbery, and even murder. This is the story of how one of hip-hop's most celebrated empires came crashing down in Georgia's longest and most expensive criminal trial. A case that put not just a man but an entire culture on trial. This is the story of State of Georgia versus Young Slime Life. Before we dive into the details of this landmark case, it's important to understand the context. Atlanta has long been recognized as the capital of Southern hip-hop. From Outkast to T.I., from Gucci Mane to Future, the city has produced some of the most influential voices in rap music. Young Thug emerged from this rich musical landscape in the early 2010s, bringing a unique, melodic style that would influence an entire generation of artists. His unconventional fashion choices, his genre-bending sound, and his prolific output made him a cultural icon. But his rise to fame was shadowed by allegations that would eventually lead to his downfall. On May 9, 2022, the Atlanta music scene was rocked. Jeffrey Williams, the man the world knew as Young Thug, was arrested. But he wasn't alone. An 88-page indictment named 28 of his associates. The charge? A sweeping RICO case. RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is a law designed to take down organized crime syndicates like the mafia. Originally enacted in 1970 to combat the Italian-American mob, RICO allows prosecutors to charge individuals not just for specific crimes, but for being part of a criminal enterprise. And according to Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis, that's exactly what YSL was. The prosecution's argument was simple yet shocking. They alleged that Young Stoner Life Records was a front. The real organization was Young Slime Life, a violent street gang affiliated with the National Bloods gang. They claimed this group was responsible for a reign of terror on the streets of Atlanta, and that Young Thug was its founder and leader. The indictment listed 181 overt acts in furtherance of this conspiracy, a laundry list of crimes dating back to 2013. These acts ranged from minor infractions to serious felonies, painting a picture of an organization that operated with impunity for nearly a decade. The charges were staggering. They included everything from drug dealing and carjacking to armed robbery. But at the heart of the case were several brutal acts of violence, including multiple murders. The prosecution was determined to prove that these weren't random acts, but calculated crimes committed to protect the gang's territory, enhance its reputation, and eliminate its rivals. Among the defendants were not just Young Thug, but also fellow rapper Ghana, whose real name is Sergio Kitchens, and several other artists signed to the YSL label. To understand the gravity of the charges, you have to go back to January 10, 2015. 26-year-old Donovan Thomas Jr., known to his friends as Nut or Big Nut, was shot and killed outside a local barbershop in Atlanta's Castleberry Hill neighborhood. He was a father of two, an aspiring artist himself. His mother, Shawana Edmond, would later testify about the boy she called Peanut. She described a young man with dreams, a loving father who was trying to make it in the music industry, just like so many others in Atlanta. But his life was cut short in a hail of bullets on a cold January day. But law enforcement saw another side of Donovan Thomas. They identified him as a high-ranking member of the Inglewood family, a rival blood set. According to investigators, the Inglewood family and YSL had been engaged in a violent turf war for years. His murder, prosecutors argued, was a classic gang hit, ordered and carried out by members of YSL to settle a score and send a message to their rivals. Two of Young Thug's co-defendants, Diamante Kendrick, also known as Yak Gotti, and Shannon Stillwell, or SB, were directly charged with his murder. The state alleged they were the triggermen, the ones who pulled the trigger that ended Donovan Thomas's life. The state's case for the murder of Donovan Thomas hinged on a star witness, Kenneth Copeland, also known as Lil Woody. In 2015, shortly after the murder, Copeland had given police a detailed statement. He claimed to have knowledge of who killed Thomas and why. He allegedly told investigators that the murder was ordered by YSL leadership and carried out by gang members. This testimony was crucial to the prosecution's case. But when he took the stand years later, in the summer of 2024, he was a different man. Copeland claimed he couldn't remember anything he told police. He said anything he might have said was a lie to protect himself. He even tried to blame a deceased friend named Threat for the murder. When prosecutors pressed him, he became defiant, refusing to cooperate. At one point, he was held in contempt of court and jailed for his refusal to testify. It was a disastrous moment for the prosecution and a perfect example of the chaos that would define this trial. The star witness had turned hostile, and the murder case was falling apart. The YSL RICO trial began on November 27, 2023, and it quickly descended into a spectacle. It became the longest and most expensive criminal trial in Georgia's history, surpassing even the most complex white-collar crime cases. The proceedings were plagued by delays, from defendants being stabbed in jail to bizarre courtroom antics. Jury selection alone took nearly 10 months, a staggering amount of time that set the tone for the chaos to come. One of the most shocking incidents occurred in December 2023, when defendant Shannon Stillwell was stabbed multiple times by another inmate while in custody at the Fulton County Jail. The attack left him hospitalized and delayed the trial for weeks. The incident raised serious questions about the safety and security of the jail and whether defendants could receive a fair trial while being held in such dangerous conditions. There were accusations of secret meetings between the judge and witnesses, leading to the judge himself being recused. In July 2024, it was revealed that Judge Ural Glanville had held a private meeting with prosecutors and a key witness, Lil Woody, without defense attorneys present. This was a major breach of judicial ethics, and defense lawyers immediately moved to have the judge removed from the case. After a contentious hearing, Judge Glanville was recused, and a new judge, Shakura Ingram, was assigned. But just 2 days later, she also recused herself due to a personal connection to a courthouse deputy who had been arrested for smuggling contraband to one of the defendants. Finally, Judge Paige Reese Whitaker took over the case and presided until its conclusion. The drama was relentless, but the most controversial aspect of the trial was the prosecution's use of rap lyrics as evidence. Prosecutors put Young Thug's own words on trial, arguing his lyrics were not art, but confessions. They projected his verses onto courtroom screens, dissecting them as admissions of guilt. The prosecution argued that when Young Thug rapped about violence, drugs, and gang life, he wasn't creating a persona or telling a story, he was documenting his crimes. This sparked a national debate. Artists and free speech advocates were outraged. They argued that treating creative expression as a literal confession was a dangerous precedent that could chill artistic freedom. Organizations like the Recording Academy and the Black Music Action Coalition spoke out against the use of lyrics as evidence. They pointed out that countless artists, from Johnny Cash to Bruce Springsteen, have written songs about crime and violence without being prosecuted for it. Why, they asked, were black rappers being held to a different standard? Was it art imitating life, or was it a diary of a criminal enterprise? The prosecution strategy was clear: to blur the line between Jeffrey Williams the artist and Young Thug the alleged gang leader. As the trial dragged on through 2024, the prosecution's case began to unravel. Witnesses refused to cooperate, evidence was challenged, and the sheer length of the trial began to wear on everyone involved. One by one, defendants started taking plea deals. Ghana, one of the most high-profile defendants, took an Alford plea in December 2022, before the trial even began. Under an Alford plea, he maintained his innocence but acknowledged that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict him. He was sentenced to 5 years, with 1 year served and the rest suspended to probation. His decision to take a deal was controversial in the hip-hop community, with some accusing him of cooperating with prosecutors, though he denied being a snitch. The massive 28-defendant case was whittled down. Then, on October 31, 2024, the biggest bombshell of all, Jeffrey Young Thug Williams, after nearly 2.5 years behind bars, took a non-negotiated plea deal. This meant he was putting his fate entirely in the hands of the judge, with no agreement from prosecutors about his sentence. He pleaded guilty to several charges, including gang participation, drug possession, and firearms violations. He was sentenced to 40 years, but with a crucial catch. The first 5 years were commuted to time served, meaning his nearly 900 days in jail counted toward his sentence, and the rest would be served on probation. As long as he stays out of trouble, he may never spend another day in prison for this case. He walked out of the Fulton County Jail a free man that same day, to the cheers of his supporters. With Young Thug out, only a handful of defendants remained. The trial finally reached its conclusion in December 2024. For the murder of Donovan Thomas Jr., the crime that sat at the heart of the case, the jury delivered a stunning verdict. Diamante Yak Gotti Kendrick and Shannon S.B. Stillwell were found not guilty of murder. After years of investigation, millions of dollars spent, and the longest trial in state history, the prosecution failed to secure a single murder conviction. Yak Gotti was acquitted on all charges and walked free. SB was found guilty only of a single firearms charge and was sentenced to time served plus probation. So what is the legacy of the YSL RICO trial? The prosecution succeeded in labeling YSL a criminal street gang in the eyes of the law. Multiple members were convicted of serious crimes through plea deals. Young Thug himself admitted to gang participation, but they failed to convict anyone of murder, and their main target, Young Thug, walked free without serving additional prison time. The case sent shockwaves through the music industry and raised profound questions about justice, art, and race. Was this a righteous crusade against gang violence, or an overzealous prosecution that targeted a successful black artist and his community? Did the state of Georgia silence a criminal, or did they try to criminalize a culture? The trial cost Fulton County an estimated $3 million, making it one of the most expensive prosecutions in the state's history. Was it worth it? The story of YSL is a modern American tragedy, a story of talent, ambition, and violence. A story of a system that put lyrics on trial and a community that was forever changed. It's a story about the blurred lines between art and reality, between success and survival, between the streets and the stage. Young Thug's case has already inspired legislative efforts to limit the use of rap lyrics as evidence in criminal trials. Several states are considering laws that would make it harder for prosecutors to use creative expression against defendants. The final verdict may be in, but the debate is far from over. As Young Thug rebuilds his career and his life, the questions remain. Can he stay out of trouble? Will he continue to make music? And what does this case mean for the future of hip-hop and criminal justice in America? Only time will tell. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth true crime stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Share this video to continue the conversation. What do you think about the YSL trial? Was justice served? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. The YSL RICO case represents more than just a criminal trial. It's a window into the complex relationship between hip-hop culture, street life, and the American justice system. To truly understand the significance of this case, we need to examine the broader context of how rap music and gang culture have intersected in the eyes of law enforcement. For decades, prosecutors have used rap lyrics as evidence in criminal cases. A 2019 study found that rap lyrics were introduced as evidence in hundreds of cases across the United States. The argument is always the same. These aren't artistic expressions, they're confessions. But critics point out a troubling pattern. Country music artists can sing about murder and mayhem without facing prosecution. Rock stars can write about drugs and violence without being charged. But when black rappers do the same, their words are used against them in court. The YSL case brought this issue to the forefront of national conversation. Legal scholars, civil rights advocates, and artists from across the music industry spoke out. They argued that using lyrics as evidence creates a chilling effect on artistic freedom. If your words can be used to convict you, how can you truly express yourself? The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, but does that protection extend to rap lyrics? These are questions that the YSL trial forced America to confront. Young Thug's influence on modern hip-hop cannot be overstated. His melodic approach to rap, his willingness to blur genre boundaries, and his unique vocal style inspired countless artists. From Lil Baby to Ghana, from Lil Uzi Vert to Playboi Carti, his fingerprints are all over the sound of contemporary rap music. He collaborated with everyone from Elton John to Travis Scott, proving that his appeal transcended traditional hip-hop audiences. His 2019 album, So Much Fun, debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. He won a Grammy Award for his contribution to This Is America by Childish Gambino. He was, by any measure, a success story, but success in the music industry didn't shield him from his past. The prosecution argued that Young Thug never left the streets behind. They claimed that even as he rose to fame, he maintained his leadership role in the YSL gang. They pointed to social media posts, to lyrics, to witness testimony. They built a narrative of a man living a double life. Superstar by day, gang leader by night. The defense countered with a different story. They argued that Jeffrey Williams grew up in a tough neighborhood, and like many artists, he drew on those experiences in his music. They said that YSL was a legitimate record label, not a criminal enterprise. They pointed out that many of the so-called gang members were actually signed artists or employees of the label. They argued that the prosecution was criminalizing an entire community, using guilt by association to take down a successful black businessman. The trial also highlighted serious issues within the Fulton County justice system. The fact that a defendant was stabbed while in custody raised questions about jail safety. The judge being forced to recuse himself due to ethical violations was unprecedented. The length of the trial, the cost to taxpayers, and the toll on everyone involved became a story in itself. Some legal experts questioned whether the RICO statute was being misused, whether it was appropriate to apply a law designed for the mafia to a group of rappers and their associates. As the trial progressed, public opinion was divided. Some saw Young Thug as a victim of a system that targets black artists. Others saw him as a criminal who used his fame as a shield. The truth, as is often the case, was probably somewhere in between. But the trial forced important conversations about race, justice, and the power of art. The impact of the YSL case will be felt for years to come. Several states are now considering legislation to limit the use of rap lyrics as evidence. California, New York, and other states have introduced bills that would require prosecutors to prove that lyrics are literal statements of fact, not artistic expression, before they can be admitted in court. These legislative efforts are a direct response to cases like Young Thug's. The case also serves as a cautionary tale for young artists. The line between authenticity and self-incrimination has never been thinner. In an era where social media and streaming platforms give artists unprecedented access to audiences, every post, every lyric, every video can potentially be used against you. The question becomes, how do you tell your story without writing your own indictment? For the families of victims like Donovan Thomas Jr., the trial's outcome was bittersweet. No one was convicted of his murder. The people they believed were responsible walked free or took plea deals. The justice they sought remained elusive. This is perhaps the greatest tragedy of the case. A young man was killed, and nearly a decade later, no one has been held fully accountable for his death. The YSL RICO trial will be studied in law schools for years to come. It will be analyzed by sociologists, discussed by music critics, and debated by legal scholars. It represents a pivotal moment in the ongoing conversation about how America treats its black artists, how the justice system handles gang-related crime, and how we balance public safety with individual rights and artistic freedom.